This woman inadvertently sees her first love in the street. She is shocked at his sudden appearance because her first love died in a car accident 10 years ago. Are they the same person? Seeing that he has left her sight, this woman immediately chases after him and desperately looks for him in the street, but still loses him. Hi everyone, Mr. Watermelon here. Today, I'm going to talk about a classic Korean drama from 2002 called Winter Sonata. Be ready for some spoilers ahead. 10 years ago, our protagonist named Eugene was a high school student. One day she took the bus to school, but fell asleep on her way. The sleeping Eugene inadvertently heads on the shoulder of a guy next to her. He carefully pushed Eugene's head back. Eugene just woke up at this time, suddenly realizing that she had sat over the station. She hurriedly got off the bus, and the boy also got off. Eugene complained that he did not wake her up earlier, so she sat over the station. After knowing he was also going to her school, she asked him to take a taxi with her. When she arrived at school, the boy strolled behind, while Eugene rushed towards the school, but she was still late, and received the punishment of kneeling with her hands up. The teacher introduces a new transfer student named Jun-sang, the same man on the bus, in front of the whole class. The students admired Jun-sang's handsome face, while Eugene regarded him with contempt. Since Jun-sang came to this school, people have talked about him a lot. Jun-sang transferred from a well-known school and won first place in the National Olympic Math competition. Jun-sang's handsome look and his talent soon attracted the attention of the class belle named Chaelin, so she went over and greeted Jun-sang. Jun-sang didn't give a damn about it. Then the class president named Sang-hyuk asked Jun-sang which club he wanted to attend. He just said he's not interested in it, and then left. When Sang-hyuk wanted to ask again, Eugene grabbed his club registration booklet and volunteered to go try. Eugene chased out and called out to Jun-sang, saying that as a new transfer student, it's not a good idea to make things difficult for the class president. He saw Sang-hyuk in the distance, and asked which club Sang-hyuk was in. Eugene said Sang-hyuk's in the broadcasting club. Jun-sang said then he'd attend the broadcasting club too. Then he turned around and left in a hurry. When everyone was cleaning up the classroom, Jun-sang stared at Sang-hyuk again. Eugene felt very puzzled when she saw it. At the end of the school day, Eugene and Sang-hyuk walked home together. They had been good friends since childhood. Their fathers are close friends too. Sang-hyuk had a secret crush on Eugene, but Eugene was not interested in him. She complained to Sang-hyuk that Jun-sang was a weird guy. While talking, she jumped on the fence to walk. Sang-hyuk was worried that she would fall and tried to hold her hand, but was refused by Eugene. It turned out that Jun-sang transferred to this school to find his biological father. Through his previous investigation, Jun-sang suspected that Sang-hyuk's father was his biological father, the professor of this school. To approach his biological father, Jun-sang sat at the back of the classroom and silently listened to his lecture. Facing a complex math problem, Jun-sang quickly solved it within a few minutes. The professor was shocked by his exceptional mathematical talent and unabashedly expressed his fondness for this high school student. At this moment, Sang-hyuk called out to his father and came over, so Jun-sang could only turn around and leave. Sang-hyuk and his parents were having dinner together. Outside, Jun-sang is looking at Sang-hyuk's family through the window. He couldn't help but feel a little lost in his heart. Jun-sang's mother was at home when he came back. She was a concert pianist. He asked her who his biological father was, but she snapped that his father was dead. Now we see some tension between them. Was Jun-sang an illegitimate child? The next day, Eugene once again ran into Jun-sang on the bus. When he got off the bus, Jun-sang found her asleep again, so he kindly knocked on the bus window and woke her up. Eugene woke up and rushed to the school, but ended up being late. To avoid punishment, Eugene dragged Jun-sang, who was also late, to the wall and tried to get him to act as her stepping stone to get over the wall into the school. Jun-sang obediently did as he was told and waited until Eugene got over the wall. Eugene reached out to pull Jun-sang, but Jun-sang just smiled slightly, then flung his school bag, and easily jumped over the wall. This dazzled Eugene, and Jun-sang reached out to help her down, but Eugene proudly refused him. However, women are sometimes so fickle, and Jun-sang had just taken a few steps when Eugene called out to him. He helped Eugene put on her shoes, and then carefully hugged her down. Eugene was a little shy at this moment, and just as she was hurrying away, she was called by Jun-sang. In the evening, Eugene was harassed by a drunken man on her way home. This scene happened to be seen by Jun-sang, who was passing by, and he hurriedly ran up and pulled Eugene away. The drunken man punched him and knocked him to the ground, and then started to make a move on her. Jun-sang immediately ran to stop him, and they began to fight. When they arrived at the police station, the police asked Jun-sang to phone his father, and asked him to come as his guardian. But Jun-sang said he had no father. When the police asked Eugene, she said she had no father either. Her father died due to an illness. When they were leaving, Eugene gave Jun-sang medicine and told him to take it regularly. This made Jun-sang feel a little warmth in his heart. And because of this heroic rescue, she developed a crush on him. The next day they had a music exam. When Eugene saw Jun-sang sitting at the piano at a loss, she explained to the teacher that he was new and taught him how to play the piano after class. She said it was to thank him for helping her out yesterday. When teaching him to play the piano, Eugene suddenly forgot the music and felt embarrassed. Jun-sang turned out to be good at playing the piano. He played a beautiful piece of music, while Eugene sat aside and listened quietly. As the rhythm played, the distance between their hearts got closer and closer. They skipped class to come outside for a walk. A naughty Eugene walked on a dead tree stump and almost fell. Jun-sang saw this and reached out to help her. Unexpectedly, Eugene agreed. The last time Sang-hyuk wanted to help her but was rejected. But this time, Eugene willingly put her hand into Jun-sang's hand. At this moment in her heart, she has accepted him. Jun-sang rides his bicycle around the woods, with Eugene in the back seat. They are like a couple in love. Jun-sang revealed to Eugene that he came here to study was to find his father. The next day, the teacher publicly criticized Jun-sang for encouraging Eugene to skip class. Unexpectedly, Eugene claimed that she skipped class of her own free will and had nothing to do with Jun-sang. This defense was an indirect admission of their relationship and drew a lot of cheers from the students. However, this made Chaelin very jealous, so she warned Eugene to stay away from Jun-sang. Eugene thought Chaelin was talking nonsense. She lifted her skirt to make fun of her. When they were in the broadcasting club, Jun-sang played the song he played for Eugene on the piano last time on the record player. Eugene asked him the name of the song, and Jun-sang said it's called First Time. Eugene said it's a beautiful name, and told Jun-sang she had spent a lot of her first time with him. She said it was her first time skipping class, her first time that she stepped on a man's back, the first time she held a man's hand, and the first time she rode a bicycle. Jun-sang formally asked Eugene for their first date, and Eugene rejoiced. Because of their date, both of them refused to go on the trip organized by the class, which made Sang-hyuk feel very confused. So after school, he quietly followed behind Jun-sang and discovered that Jun-sang was close to his father. Sang-hyuk found Jun-sang and asked him why he was doing that. Jun-sang said Sang-hyuk was too lucky and had everything, so Jun-sang wanted to take something away from Sang-hyuk. This made Sang-hyuk mistakenly think that Jun-sang intentionally approached Eugene to make Sang-hyuk feel bad. Their conversation was overheard by Eugene outside the door. She asked Jun-sang if he really meant what he had just said, but Jun-sang remained silent. A furious Eugene slapped him and left in anger. Their first date was cancelled. They both went on the class trip. On the trip, Jun-sang found Eugene and tried to explain for that day, but Eugene was still upset about what happened and didn't give him any chance to explain. Jun-sang was overwhelmed with anger, so he deliberately said he meant what he said that day. After hearing this, Eugene left in anger but got lost in the woods, and luckily Jun-sang found her. Because of this incident, they finally calmed down. Jun-sang earnestly said to Eugene that he was sincere to her, and everything he said and every promise he made was definitely not a lie. At this moment, the misunderstanding was finally cleared up, and their relationship started to heat up. When the first snow fell, they went to the grove, had a snowball fight and made a snowman. Looking at the snowman made by Eugene, Jun-sang put them together to make it look like they were kissing, and he expressed his envy of their kissing. Hearing this, Eugene shyly kissed him. They ran in the snow, had a snowball fight and enjoyed their world. The seed of love took root in their hearts. Jun-sang sent her home, and they made a date to meet on New Year's Eve night. She gave him her pink mittens to keep his hands warm on his way home. On impulse, she invited him in for dinner. Eugene's sister clung to Jun-sang's lap and didn't let go, looking at his handsome face and telling Eugene that she wants to marry him when she grows up. Her sister's words made Eugene burst into laughter. Her sister took out the photo album of Eugene's childhood to let Jun-sang flip through it, and said Eugene was really ugly when she's a child. Jun-sang was happily admiring the photos with a charming smile throughout. Just then, Jun-sang saw a familiar photo and nervously asked Eugene who the man in the photo was. Eugene told him it's her father. Later in the evening, Eugene came out of the kitchen after cooking and was about to call Jun-sang for dinner, but found the living room empty. It turned out that the three people in the photo were Sang-hyuk's father, Jun-sang's mother, and Eugene's father. Jun-sang suspected that his biological father was either Sang-hyuk's father or Eugene's father. He ran all the way to Sang-hyuk's father's office. He learned from Sang-hyuk's father that Sang-hyuk's father was only an admirer of his mother, and that the person who was in love with his mother was Eugene's father. He thinks that he is Eugene's half-brother sharing the same father. He couldn't believe that fate had played such a joke on him, and didn't know how to face Eugene, so he chose to run away and follow his mother to study in America. It's New Year's Eve. It snowed again, and Eugene waited expectantly for Jun-sang's appearance. She waited a long time, but Jun-sang never showed up. At this time, Jun-sang was on his way to the airport. When he saw the gloves Eugene gave him, he suddenly remembered the agreement between them and hurriedly got out of the car and rushed to the appointed place. He intended to meet up with Eugene and tell her everything, including his suspicions of who his father was. However, fate played another joke on them. When Jun-sang was crossing the road, a big truck suddenly came from the front, and Jun-sang finally failed to go to Eugene, who was still waiting until all the stores were closed, and she had to leave. Eugene got on the bus and overlooked the traffic accident outside the window. The following day, when Eugene came to class, she heard the news that Jun-sang had died in a traffic accident. The sudden change made Eugene unable to calm down for a long time. She couldn't believe it was true. She went from disbelief to panic and then into full-fledged meltdown mode. 10 years later, Eugene becomes a professional interior designer. She and Sang-hyuk get together and are ready to get engaged. On their engagement day, the first snow falls and Eugene remembers Jun-sang because the encounter with Jun-sang made her lifelong memories. Fate is sometimes so wonderful. She suddenly sees Jun-sang in the street. The man she loves so much died unexpectedly 10 years ago, but now he has reappeared. Eugene chases after him, desperately looking for him but loses him. At the engagement party, Sang-hyuk waits anxiously and calls Eugene countless times, but no one answers. By the time the guests have all dispersed, Eugene is still nowhere to be found. Just when everyone is worried that Eugene is in danger and ready to call the police, the disoriented Eugene comes to the engagement site. Sang-hyuk's mother is furious when she sees Eugene because her absence at the engagement ceremony embarrassed Sang-hyuk's family. Sang-hyuk asks Eugene what happened, and before she can say anything, she faints from emotional stress. Eugene's mother asks Eugene what happened, but Eugene remains silent because she doesn't know how to explain it to her mother. After that, Eugene often goes to where she last met Jun-sang, hoping to meet him again, but he doesn't show up again. Sang-hyuk knows Eugene is still in love with Jun-sang, but he doesn't care much. Instead, he comforts her and tells her that he can lend her his shoulder whenever she is in trouble. Eugene has always known that Sang-hyuk profoundly loves her. To not burden him anymore, Eugene burns the portrait of Jun-sang that she has treasured for years. After all, it is time for her to let go of her feelings after so many years. In order to celebrate the engagement of Sang-hyuk and Eugene, their high school classmates hold a celebration party at their alma mater, and their class spelled Chaelin also attends it. Just then, a familiar figure suddenly appears. Eugene is shocked and involuntarily stands up. Everyone is stunned because this man and Jun-sang are so much alike. Chaelin introduces to everyone that his name is Lee Min-young, who grew up in France and is now her boyfriend. Eugene tries to act as if nothing is wrong, forcing herself to control her emotion, but in fact, her heart is suffering. Eugene purposely finds Chaelin, urgently asking her about Min-hyung's past. Chaelin tells her that Min-young just looks similar to Jun-sang. There is no relationship between them at all. After hearing this, Eugene suddenly loses control of her emotions and leaves in a hurry. The next day, Eugene works as a designer for a ski resort renovation project and comes to meet the lead engineer of this project. She didn't expect Min-young is the one in charge of this project, but Eugene is not happy at all, because she doesn't want to see that face exactly like Jun-sang's. Eugene comes to the company to give a presentation on the project. Min-young looks at her, who is talking eloquently with an admiring face. After the meeting, he invites Eugene to have dinner with him. Min-young awkwardly explains that he invited her to dinner because he thinks they are workmates, so he thinks they should get closer. However, Eugene just says sorry and leaves. When they go to the ski resort to inspect the project, Min-young is worried that Eugene feels cold, so he helps her put on his coat. Later, Eugene takes pictures at the ski resort, surrounded by beautiful snow scenery. Seeing this scene, she once again recalls the scene of playing in the snow with Jun-sang during her high school days. Seeing Min-young walking in front of her, she can't help but take some pictures of him with her camera and then casually puts the film roll in her pocket. Sang-hyuk calls, and she hides the fact that she is working with Min-young because she is afraid that Sang-hyuk would misunderstand.
유진 씨는 결혼하면 어떤 집에서 살고 싶어요?
사랑하는 사람에게는 서로의 마음이 제일 좋은 집이잖아요.
Hearing her words, a warmth floods his heart, and he begins to have an inexplicable affection for her. They walk in the thick snow. Eugene steps on his footprints to follow. Min-young helps Eugene to dry her shoes. This reminds Eugene of the time when he and Jun-sang were in high school. They went over the wall into the school, and Jun-sang helped her put on her shoes. She can't help but ask where Min-young went to high school. Did he really go to high school in France? Does he remember her high school? Faced with an emotional Eugene, Min-young smiles and tells her to ask him one question at a time. She can't control herself and tries to take off his glasses, but he dodges it. Eugene feels embarrassed and hurriedly apologizes to him. He doesn't understand why she always acts strangely whenever she sees him. Eugene is just about to explain something but is interrupted by a knock on the door, and Chaelin leaps into his arms, and then realizes Eugene is there. She is surprised to learn they are in charge of a ski resort renovation project together. By the time they leave, Eugene returns the coat to Min-young and doesn't notice that the film roll is still in that coat's pocket. When Chaelin sees this scene, she hurriedly urges Eugene to leave. Chaelin then deliberately denigrates Eugene in front of Min-young, saying that Eugene intentionally uses the guise of her first love as a way to seduce many men, and tells Min-young to be more careful in the future. Eugene wants to tell Sang-hyuk that she works with Min-young. Before she can say it, Chaelin purposely brings Min-young to meet them and reveals to Sang-hyuk that Min-young and Eugene work together. Upon hearing this, Sang-hyuk is shocked and looks at Eugene without saying a word. Knowing that she has once again broken his heart, Eugene apologizes to him and also says that she will quit her job as soon as possible. However, Sang-hyuk understands this job is important to Eugene and generously persuades Eugene to finish the ski resort project. On the way back, Chaelin wastes no time in subtly bashing Eugene by saying that during high school, Eugene liked to imitate her, wore her favorite clothes, or seduced her first love. Chaelin is worried that Eugene will steal Min-young away. Min-young tells her not to be too sensitive. He believes that Eugene is not that kind of person. Min-young and Eugene work together for a while and develop a very cordial relationship. Min-young asks Eugene if she will attend the company's party tomorrow. Eugene says she doesn't know yet and doesn't have anything suitable to wear. Min-young says she can wear anything she likes and will look great whatever she wears. Chaelin learns that Eugene will attend the party, and she asks Min-young to bring her too. Min-young picks a dress for her. Chaelin buys 2 identical dresses, one for Eugene and one for herself to wear to the party. At the party, Min-young compliments her on how beautiful she is. Later, Eugene also comes over. When he sees the same dress on her, Min-young remembers what Chaelin said earlier about Eugene being a mimic. Min-young looks at Eugene disappointedly. Although he doesn't want to believe that she is that kind of person, the fact is right in front of him. Chaelin then breathlessly says she wants to leave, otherwise it would be embarrassing. Before leaving, Chaelin tells Min-young that Eugene may mention that he looks like her first love, but it's just a pickup line. Min-young is about to return to the party when he runs into a limping Eugene. He dashes off a snarky comment that her clothes looked borrowed. What he doesn't know is that Eugene wore high heels for the first time to come to the party, and got her heels rubbed. He accidentally finds the film roll that Eugene left in his coat and develops it, only to find the photos taken by Eugene were all of him. This makes him believe in Chaelin's words and thinks that Eugene is trying to steal him away from Chaelin. A colleague asks Min-young to go to a bar, and they run into Eugene. They sit together to play truth or dare. The colleague asks Min-young who his first love was. He says he doesn't remember, but feels that the person he loves now is the one who matters. They again ask Eugene who her first love was, but Eugene remains silent. Eugene doesn't answer, but downs an entire glass of beer. It's finally the end of the evening, and everyone leaves except Eugene and Min-young. A drunken Eugene finally tells him that he looks like her first love. Min-young just sneers a little after hearing it because he remembers Chaelin said Eugene deliberately uses the guise of her first love as a way to seduce many men. Although he begins to hate her a little, Min-young cannot leave the drunken Eugene alone, but can only take her back to his home. In a daze, Eugene sees him without glasses. The drunken Eugene mistakes the glasses-less Min-young for Jun-sang, hugs him excitedly, and cries that she really misses him. Min-young thinks Eugene is just acting and looks at her indifferently. Eugene asks him if he really doesn't remember her. Min Young just shakes his head. He slowly wipes away her tears and then prepares to kiss her. Eugene closes her eyes, but he pulls away. Eugene freezes while Min Young asks her to stop acting, saying she has shed enough tears, and has pretended to be drunk and to tell the story. He says he doesn't appreciate easy women and ones who try to steal their friends' boyfriends. Eugene looks at him in disbelief. The shock of his cruel words snaps her out of her state as she stares at him. She realizes that the person in front of her is just Min Young, not Junsang. She picks up her bag and prepares to leave. Eugene flees the place holding back her tears. After Eugene leaves, Min Young sits in the living room and puzzles over Eugene's contradictory behavior. The next day, Eugene apologizes to him for her drunken behavior last night. But Min Young questions that she pretended to be drunk yesterday and doesn't listen to her explanation. The renovation of the ski resort project officially starts. Although Min Young has some misunderstandings about Eugene, he appreciates her work ability. At dinner, through Eugene's old colleague, he realizes that Eugene really can't drink. Curious, he asks another of Eugene's old colleagues what kind of person Eugene really is. The old colleague tells him that Eugene is the kind of woman who only loves one person in her life. Min Young becomes even more confused because it contrasts so much with what Chaelin said. Min Young asks his girlfriend about Eugene and Junsang's past, but Chaelin acts very perverse and answers vaguely. She realizes that Min Young seems to have sensed something. Chaelin inadvertently finds a notebook that Eugene left in Min Hyung's room that night she got drunk. Chaelin runs to question why Eugene was in Min Hyung's room. Eugene honestly tells Chaelin that she got drunk and Min Young took her home that night. She mistook Min Young for Junsang. Hearing her words, Chaelin warns her to stay away from Min Young and tells her to put away her feelings for Junsang. After all, she and Sang-hyuk were already engaged. Eugene says it was just her illusion, and they didn't do anything to cross the line. Next, Chaelin confronts her boyfriend about that night. She deliberately acts like she's upset and makes up a new lie, saying Eugene told her that Min Hyung tried to seduce her in his room. Without waiting for Min Young to explain, Chaelin pretends to be sad and leaves. Min Young confronts Eugene, says some mean and hurtful things to her, and asks her to stop trying to ruin his relationship with his girlfriend. This once again deepens the misunderstanding between them, but Chaelin never expects that just when Min Young comes to apologize to her, he overhears her talking to her colleague named Jin-suk. Jin-suk is also Eugene's high school friend. After Chaelin goes out, Min Young asks Jin-suk if he really looks like Junsang. Min Young didn't expect to be fooled by Chaelin. He asks Jin-suk if Chaelin liked Junsang. After hearing that, he sneers. He then learns from Jin-suk that Junsang has been dead for 10 years. Min Young is shocked, then he runs out in a hurry and drives towards the ski resort. Thinking he misunderstood Eugene before, he is chagrined. He finds Eugene and wants to apologize, but didn't expect Sang-hyuk to be there, so he has to turn around and leave. The next day when they are at the worksite, the plank suddenly collapses. Seeing it is going to hit Min Young, she doesn't even think about it, and rushes up to push him away, and she ends up in the hospital. Outside the operating room, Min Young anxiously awaits the results. Sang-hyuk also rushes to the hospital. When he hears that Eugene was injured because of Min Young, Sang-hyuk is very angry and lashes out at Min Young, but he doesn't resist. Luckily Eugene is just slightly injured. When she wakes up, the first thing she says is to ask if Min Young is okay, instead of caring about Sang-hyuk that has been watching over her, which pisses off Sang-hyuk. When Min Young learns that Eugene has woken up, he wants to stay and take care of her out of guilt. Sang-hyuk refuses him, saying he knows how to take care of his fiancée. Chaelin sees this and says that Eugene needs to get some rest and pulls Min Young away. When they return home, he flat out asks her why she lied about Junsang. Chaelin goes into her rehearsed story, saying Eugene always wanted everything Chaelin had. She lied that because she was afraid her boyfriend would be stolen away by Eugene. She cried and begged Min Young for forgiveness, saying that Junsang had already been stolen away by Eugene, and she didn't want Min Young to be taken away too. But Min Young is not buying it anymore. He tells her that they need some time apart. In the ward, Sang-hyuk asks if Eugene hasn't forgotten Junsang and would rather get hurt herself than see someone who looks like Junsang get hurt. Eugene says sadly that she doesn't know what to do. She also wants to forget about Junsang, but her eyes remember Junsang perfectly well, and her heart remembers what Junsang has said to her. After hearing this, Sang-hyuk can only leave disappointed. After being discharged from the hospital, Eugene follows Min Young to the mountain top to inspect the work. At night a blizzard warning is suddenly issued, and they have to stay there for the night. Min Young takes the opportunity to express his apology to Eugene. pleading with her to forget about Junsang and starts a new life of her own, because it is simply not worth doing so for a person who has been dead for 10 years. Eugene instantly becomes extremely emotional after hearing this. Her voice gets louder as she throws out the question, why does it matter to him?
당신을 좋아하니까.
His sudden declaration freezes her for a moment. She is clear that the person in front of him is Min-young, not Junsang. That snaps her out, and she bolts from the room down the stairs and out the door. The next day, Min-young finds her and asks who exactly is the person that Eugene loves in her heart now, but she remains silent. At this moment, Sang-hyuk suddenly appears behind him and says Eugene is his fiancé and tells Min-young to stop thinking of her, and then drags Eugene away. Even so, Min-young says to his face that he likes Eugene and continues to ask who exactly is the person that Eugene loves now. Sang-hyuk looks incredibly angry after hearing this. However, Min-young asks him, don't you want to know who is the person that Eugene truly loves now? To avoid things from getting out of hand, Eugene hurriedly pulls Sang-hyuk away. Sang-hyuk also realizes the sense of crisis, so he asks Eugene if she loves him, but Eugene remains silent. At this moment, Sang-hyuk already knows that the person Eugene loves in her heart is Min-young. Sang-hyuk angrily jumps in the car and takes off. Min-young finds Eugene and apologizes to her, not expecting that his confession would cause her so much trouble, and promises that it will not happen again. Knowing that Eugene is heading back to the city to see Sang-hyuk, Min-young drives her to the train station and helps her buy a ticket. He purposefully keeps the conversation light, and tells her to come back smiling. However, when they meet, Sang-hyuk is still angry about Eugene's hesitation, and walks away. Eugene has to go back, and then she bumps into Min-young. She pretends to be strong and spins a story that her fiancé was ecstatic to see her, but too busy to do anything. Min-young sees through it though. He knows that too much pressure has built up in Eugene's heart, and she needs to find a quiet place to release it. Therefore, Min-young brings her to the ski resort, so that Eugene can cry out as much as she wants, and then she will feel much better. Looking at the ball and Eugene, Min-young also feels very upset. On Sang-hyuk's mother's birthday day, Sang-hyuk still comes to pick up Eugene, and takes her to his mother to celebrate his birthday. Just a moment ago, Chaelin came to Sang-hyuk's mother and badmouthed Eugene, saying that Eugene was having an affair with another man. Therefore, when Eugene arrives, Sang-hyuk's mother confronts her, asking if she's seeing someone behind her son's back. Sang-hyuk overhears and throws a hissy in the kitchen. Mom slaps him and wonders what's so good about Eugene. Sang-hyuk grabs Eugene and they leave. He asks Eugene if she is really in love with Min-young, but Eugene remains silent. While she goes to the bathroom, her phone rings and Sang-hyuk answers it. The caller is none other than Min-young. Sang-hyuk deliberately tells him that Eugene is with him at the hotel and will not return tonight. Eugene argues, and then Sang-hyuk loses it, and tries to tear at her clothes aggressively, but she manages to escape. Min-young is very worried about the situation of Eugene. Just when Eugene is sad and crying, she once again receives a call from Min-young. He drives non-stop. Finally coming to her side, they look deep into each other's eyes, and Min-young can no longer control holding her in his arms. Just a moment ago, Sang-hyuk had asked Eugene if she was in love with Min-young. At that time Eugene did not reply. Perhaps this was her answer. Min-young thoughtfully helps Eugene put on his scarf. He rationally reminds Eugene to make her position clear or everyone would be stressed. Min-young also tells Eugene that he will support her choice no matter what decision she makes. Eugene returns Min-hyung's scarf to him. This happens to be witnessed by Sang-hyuk's mother, who becomes even more convinced that Eugene is having an affair with someone. So Sang-hyuk's mother is firmly against the marriage of Sang-hyuk and Eugene. She knows that Eugene already has someone else in her heart, and once they get married, either of them will be happy in the end. Eugene finally chooses Min-young. Min-young clearly knows that if Eugene wants to be with him, she has to face this hurdle sooner or later, otherwise it will bring more misunderstanding and harm to Sang-hyuk. On the other hand, Sang-hyuk is overwhelmed by sadness that he refuses to eat or drink and is eventually hospitalized. Eugene blames herself for this. Min-young knows that the only one who can save Sang-hyuk now is Eugene, and he has to make his decision. The next day, Min-young brings Eugene to the hospital and urges her to go in. Min-young says he will wait for her in the car. Eugene is afraid she won't be able to come back if she goes. Min-young says it would be better that way. He doesn't want to see Eugene in pain. Returning to Sang-hyuk is better than seeing her in pain. Sang-hyuk sees Eugene and asks her if she can stay by his side forever. Eugene can only say sorry. A desperate Sang-hyuk can only let her go. Then he angrily pulls the 4 out of his arm. Fortunately, the doctor rescues him in time, otherwise, it could have been life-threatening. Eugene cries why he did such a stupid thing. Min-young has been waiting in the car for a long time, but he doesn't see Eugene come back and understands her decision. Because of Sang-hyuk, Eugene has to end her work on the ski resort project early. Before leaving, she and Min-young say goodbye to each other in the snow. After Eugene decides to stay with Sang-hyuk, Min-young goes back to his hometown for vacation, and he meets a man by chance. While chatting, the man says he has rescued a boy named Jun-sang in this river many years ago, and Jun-sang looked exactly like Min-young. Min-young is surprised to hear this, because 2 days ago, his mother also inadvertently let slip that he nearly drowned 20 years ago. Min-young is so puzzled that he asks his mother if she knows a man named Jun-sang. His mother is a bit stunned and hastily denies that she knows him, but from his mother's panicked behavior and all the coincidence, Min-young suspects that he and Jun-sang have some kind of connection. He finds out Jun-sang's home address from Jun-sang's high school and comes to his house. He doesn't expect that his mom also comes here shortly after he enters the house. It turns out that she has hidden everything from him. Min-young is indeed Jun-sang. Jun-sang's mother tells him. 10 years ago, Jun-sang had a car accident and lost his original memory. Jun-sang had a painful childhood as an illegitimate child and he was bitter, angry, mom-hating. Then she asked a hypnotist to erase his memory to make him the happy Min-young he is now because she didn't want him to live in pain. After listening to his mother's heartfelt words, Min-young forgives his mother. But his memory is not recovered. He feels that he cannot do anything but make Eugene suffer more. So he decides to lose his Jun-sang identity and go overseas with his mom. Before he leaves, he finds Sang-hyuk and tells Sang-hyuk he is actually Jun-sang, stating that he won't bother them anymore because he will go overseas. He hopes Sang-hyuk will treat Eugene well in the future because she is such a kind girl. On the other hand, when Eugene returns to the office, she learns from her colleague about Min-hyung's departure abroad and a CD that Min-young left for her. After thinking for a moment, she still rationally chooses not to go to the airport to see him off. When Eugene is listening to that CD, she finds out that the song is the same song that Jun-sang played to her 10 years ago. She has never mentioned this song to anyone. She realizes that Min-young is Jun-sang, and she rushes to the airport, desperately searching for him. Luckily, she finds him. He admits that he is Jun-sang, and she tells Jun-sang about all the good memories they had, but Jun-sang's mind is blank. He thinks that without those memories, he can't be the man Eugene loved. Therefore, Jun-sang still decides to go overseas. While she is sleeping, he calls Sang-hyuk and asks him to come to pick up Eugene at dawn. When Eugene wakes up the next day and finds that Jun-sang is not with her, she looks for him frantically. Even if Sang-hyuk shows up, it doesn't stop her from looking for him. Because Eugene no longer wants to run away from her feelings, she calls out loudly to Jun-sang across the road. She runs over to him, without noticing a speeding truck driving toward her. In a split second, Jun-sang pushes her out of the way, and he ends up in a car accident again, and some of his previous memories come to his mind. During his coma, Eugene has been watching over him. A few days later, he wakes up, telling Eugene that he has recovered some of his memory, but there are still many he can't remember. Eugene begs him not to worry and that they will soon return. They hug as Jun-sang whispers of his happiness to remember her. When Jun-sang is discharged from the hospital, he takes Eugene to the place where they first kissed, and the good memory of the past comes to mind. Jun-sang also finds the gloves that Eugene gave him at home. They go to where they agreed to meet on New Year's Eve. At this moment, snowflakes are falling from the sky, and Jun-sang remembers the words he planned to say to Eugene 10 years ago.
사랑해.
Eugene is moved to tears, and their relationship begins to heat up rapidly, and Jun-sang proposes to her. She nods, and they share a kiss before the altar. But before they get married, Jun-sang sees a picture of his mother and remembers that he may be Eugene's half-brother sharing the same father. Jun-sang comes over and asks his mother if Eugene's father is his biological father. His mother nods and admits it, and tells him to break up with Eugene, or she will tell Eugene the truth. Jun-sang begs his mother not to say anything. He is afraid that Eugene won't be able to accept it. Jun-sang wants to spend some last good time with Eugene. They drive to the beach. It's the first time they come to see the sea together, and possibly the last time. They lay on the beach sunbathing and enjoy a short but happy time. Happiness is always fleeting. At night, Eugene sleeps quietly, and Jun-sang kisses her cheek affectionately. He calls Sang-hyuk and tells him everything and asks him to come pick up Eugene the next day. When Eugene wakes up, she finds Sang-hyuk waiting outside the door. Jun Sang deliberately asked Sang Hyuk to tell Eugene that he left without saying goodbye because his mother didn't approve of their marriage. When Sang Hyuk returns home, he mentions to his father that Jun Sang is Eugene's half-brother sharing the same father, so they have no choice but to break up. Sang Hyuk's mother overhears their conversation. She doesn't expect her son to still care so much about Eugene. She then comes over to Eugene and asks her to stop bothering Sang Hyuk. She unintentionally reveals that Eugene and Jun Sang are half-siblings sharing the same father. Hearing this sudden news, Eugene is stunned and can't believe it is true. She hurriedly comes to Jun Sang and asks him if this is true. Jun Sang just nods silently. Eugene finally knows why Jun Sang broke up with her, and she understands that they can't be together anymore. On the other hand, Sang Hyuk's father suspects that Jun Sang may be his illegitimate son because he and Jun Sang's mother also had a relationship, although Jun Sang's mother didn't like him. When he finds Jun Sang to ask for details, Jun Sang suddenly faints. Sang Hyuk's father takes Jun Sang to the hospital, and he secretly goes to do a DNA test. After Jun Sang wakes up, the doctor tells him that the 2 serious car accidents have left Jun Sang with serious sequelae, and that a chronic venous hematoma has been found in his brain. He needs a surgery as soon as possible, but the surgery could lead to blindness and even a risk to his life. The result of the paternity test soon comes out. Jun Sang is indeed Sang Hyuk's father's biological son. It turns out that Sang Hyuk and Jun Sang are half-brothers, not Eugene. Sang Hyuk's father tells Jun Sang about this. Jun Sang can't believe his ears. He confronts his mother about why she lied to him. His mother explained that she and Eugene's father were engaged, but Eugene's father dumped her before getting married. This made her suffer and try to commit suicide, but fortunately, she was saved by Sang Hyuk's father. They had sexual relations and conceived Jun Sang. But Jun Sang's mother was deeply in love with Eugene's father and was unwilling to face reality. So she wanted to believe that Jun Sang was her and Eugene's dad's child. On the other hand, to avoid seeing Jun Sang, Eugene decides to go to France to study. Sang Hyuk wants to go with her and is willing to be her partner for life and protect her, but Eugene refuses him, saying she is unable to love someone else other than Jun Sang. There is no changing her mind, and she apologizes for not having the tiniest corner of her heart available for Sang Hyuk to stick. But Sang Hyuk still plans to wait until she changes her mind and accepts him. After Sang Hyuk returns home, his dad reveals to him that he and Jun Sang are actually half-brothers. Sang Hyuk is shocked and flees the house. He comes to Jun Sang and says he already knows everything and complains that Jun Sang stole Eugene and now even his father. He says Jun Sang's presence has made his life a mess. Sang Hyuk wants Jun Sang to convince Eugene to accept Sang Hyuk and let Sang Hyuk go abroad with her. Jun Sang looks at his half-brother, who has been hurt because of him, and there is no way to give Eugene happiness with his condition. Jun Sang then asks Eugene out, urging her to accept Sang Hyuk, who is the only one that can give her happiness. The next day, Jun Sang decides to go overseas to undergo surgery. Before leaving, Jun Sang tells Sang Hyuk to take good care of Eugene, and that's his last wish. However, Jun Sang doesn't tell Sang Hyuk about his condition, because that would only bring more pain to everyone. Later, Sang Hyuk inadvertently receives a call from the hospital and learns about Jun Sang's illness, so Sang Hyuk hurriedly finds Eugene and tells her everything. They rush to the airport to look for Jun Sang but not being able to catch up. Sang Hyuk buys Eugene a ticket for her to go overseas to find Jun Sang, but Eugene remembers what Jun Sang said. Therefore, she still goes to France to study. 3 years have passed and Jun Sang has built a villa by the sea, which was built according to Eugene's dream home. He can no longer see, but still can clearly remember every corner. Eugene returns from France and accidentally sees a house in a magazine that looks exactly the same as her design. Eugene is so surprised that she finds it according to the address and slowly walks in. Eugene looks at the person she has missed for so long in front of her, and her eyes are filled with tears. Although invisible, Jun Sang still smells Eugene. Finally, they are together. Jun Sang gently touches her face, memorizing the new contours. As dusk descends, the pair is thrown into shadowy relief as they finally kiss. This love story ends here. Subscribe for more stories like this. We really need your support to make more videos. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.